Here we go. We're part two of the spot healing brush. We have spot healing brush my face open. You're going to want to follow along, or if you don't follow along now, you are going to want to do this because you're going to need to turn this in for points. What we're going to do here is we are going to use the spot healing brush tool to edit out some of the wrinkles. I'm going to add one additional element to the technique of using the spot healing brush. In fact, you know what I think I'll do? I'll add two additional elements for a additional advantage or more control or more flexibility when doing this technique using the spot healing brush tool. Hopefully you remember a couple of things I told you to do on the previous video. One, we want to look at things at 100%, so I'm going to zoom up to 100% right now. Two, we're going to add a new layer, and I'm going to name that Wrinkle Removal. And then we are going to make sure, I'm going to make sure my mode over here is normal, and I'm sampling all layers. Grab the spot healing brush tool, and I'm going to start painting over some of these wrinkles. I'm going to, before I start, move down here to the bottom, and I'll go right over this area right here, this area right here, maybe this area right here, and you can see that as I do, I start to get some removal of these wrinkles. Now I'm not drawing big swooping things, and you notice sometimes here I have to go over it again a second time or even maybe a third time. You can see how it can get a little bit weird. This is where I'm talking about duplicating. So you want to be careful. If you see pixels duplicate, the same sort of lines or shapes or darkness or lightness pixels, you can tell then it's been photoshopped. It looks a little bit odd. Maybe nobody will catch it, but a good Photoshop graphic designer or that art director that you're trying to get a job from, they'll catch it. So you want to be very, very careful and notice if this thing starts to duplicate pixels and make things look weird. I'm just going to do this chin area here. I'm not going to do the whole face. You can do the whole face as you like, but you can see that as I'm doing this wrinkle removal technique, it's working pretty well. I'm going to do some up here by the mouth, and just to get sort of a feel, an idea of how this really is making a difference, I'm going to turn on and off the layer. So there's the wrinkle remover layer. It's off. Now it's on. Now it's off. Now it's on. If I zoom back out, you can see that at least the chin area is looking much better. The next part of this is I want to show you that with this wrinkle removal layer, sometimes you want to have some of the wrinkles showing through. You don't want it to be completely edited away. Well, that's easy. All you have to do is adjust the opacity. Watch when I dial down the opacity to 50%. I'm going to turn the layer on and off, and you'll see that instead of the wrinkles being completely removed, look at the chin area, they're just sort of partially removed. They're not as dark, they're not as deep. This is something that you may want to do with a particular Photoshop problem. And then lastly, I want to show you one other thing that you can do. I'm going to dial the opacity up to 100% again. I'm going to zoom in to this area right here, and you'll notice that if I get a bigger brush and I paint over this big, huge wrinkle here, and it sort of makes a weird thing, but there you go. And I'll zoom out a little bit. That looks a little bit odd right there, and I get it. This is why we use other techniques, and I'll show you those next. But what I want to show you here is another option you have for subtlety in your work here, reducing wrinkles or other kinds of problems that you might face in retouching. not only can you move the opacity down, but if you move the opacity down, maybe it's too much for some areas and not enough for other areas. So with this wrinkle removal layer, you can add a layer mask. Remember those? Layer mask. And if you paint with black on a layer mask, it hides pixels. If you paint with white, it shows pixels. I'm grabbing a paintbrush over here. Down at the bottom, I'm making sure that I have black and white is my color, foreground and background colors, with black in the foreground. And I'm going to get a bigger brush, right click, make my brush size bigger, hit the return key. And you'll notice if I paint with black on that layer mask, it brings that wrinkle back. See that layer mask where the black is? It's where the wrinkle is. And so now the pixel layer that was hiding that wrinkle is now showing through. Or I shouldn't say it that way, it probably confuses you. The pixels that were hiding the layer below it are now being hidden so the layer below it can show through. That is, the wrinkles are showing through. Well, this is not what we wanted, because what we wanted is only some of the wrinkle to show through, not all of it. So I'm going to take a step back in my history palette for a second, or I Command Z. And instead of painting with solid black, I'm going to come up here to my options bar and I'm going to paint with about 30% black. And when I paint with 30% black, it's only going to be painting 30% gray on the layer mask. So watch what happens. See how that only partially comes back? Not totally. If I do it again, I'm painting 30% gray more, and a little bit more of that comes back, and maybe I want a lot more of that there. And so what this allows me to do is have some flexibility in how I make these edits, how I do this retouching. Hopefully that makes sense. What I'd like you to do is finish this piece at however you want her to look. You don't have to remove every wrinkle. You want it to look natural. So just remove some of the wrinkles here and save this file and turn it in according to the assignment instructions.